When it comes to the Thomas Wooden Railway System, it has some notable models for all the wrong reasons.
He was very, very fast.
And what might be no surprise to you, people have taken it upon themselves to rectify these flaws and make their own custom models. I am no different. I've been making Thomas customs as far back as I can remember to varying degrees of success, and all that time I've learned a little bit on just how to do it. And hopefully with this video, you will too. I've owed you guys this video for so long, and before we get into the meat and potatoes of it, let's set a few guidelines. Firstly, safety first. If you are under 18 or generally just not confident in your abilities using tools or procedures listed in this video, ask an adult or guardian for help. I can't control what you do, but I can advise you that safety does come first. Plus, it's probably really embarrassing going into ER because you fumbled something on your AU Fergus model because you weren't safe. I've had so many safety mishaps, it's a miracle I'm still in one piece, so please, take it from me and be safe. Most materials, tools, and substances will most likely have a safety data sheet you can look up and read so you know what not to do, what you can do, and what to do if something goes wrong. I highly advise looking through these and their instructions before usage. Next, these tips I'm giving are mainly applicable to customs in the Thomas Wooden Railway System. I've dabbled in motorized and die-cast customs before, but I don't feel qualified to give genuine advice in those ranges. Some of the advice I might give could be applicable to those in other ranges, but I'm not going to overstep my knowledge. I also barely modeled an HO, HO130, Gauge 1, etc., but I am way out of my league there, so I really not going to touch on that stuff. It's going to mainly be TWR. Lastly, the way I'm going to go through this is by each step in my process of custom making. I'll explain what I do in each step, what not to do, stuff like that. Then on to the next step and advice. By all means, what I say isn't law. If you have a process that's better than what I have to offer, stick to your guns. Or even better, you can share it with us and we can all learn. And we'll touch on it later, but always use personal protective equipment. With that being said, I think it'd be boring if I took you through this with photos alone, so join me as I guide you in custom making as I make 13, Thumper, John MSR, Donald Douglas, Splatter Job. Who are these guys? Well, let's get started. Step 1. How exactly are we going to do this? Going in without a plan to a project is, to be blunt, a stupid idea. Hey, sometimes stupid ideas work, and you're proud of how they turned out. But more often than not, you're setting yourself back. Knowing what you want to do is crucial into bringing it into reality. At first, that sounds like a really simple step. Oh, I want to make my AU Thomas. I'll take my spare Thomas and see where that takes me. To know what you want your model to look like and how it's going to go together is everything. And if this beat in the rhythm is missed, it can make you unhappy with the final result. Trust me, being unhappy with what you made isn't fun. I've redone my 08s like 7 times due to them not having any direction like this. It's horrible. It should also be said that if you're not scratch building a model, you should have something what I call a fail-safe model. Let's say you make a Gordon model, or you try, but something goes wrong and the whole project is dead in the water. If you used your only Gordon toy, now you have nothing to film or display with. I've done this multiple times. It can be a real setback and a motivation killer, so always keep a fail-safe. Step 2. Before creation comes destruction. Firstly, be safe and take care and time when disassembling. Taking apart an existing model or toy can be difficult depending on what it is. What I found is everything prior to Mattel's rule of TWR is held together with glue and tool dowels or screws in the chassis that can be easily cut out with a knife, or what I use, tree trimmers. However, when Mattel took over the TWR brand, these pleasantries in disassembly were taken away. On a standard 6 or 4-wheel chassis, 2 pegs still hold the body into it, yes. But now, the smoke box is both screwed into the footplate and bolted into the boiler. This makes taking them off a nightmare, and there's really no good way to go about it besides cutting them away because the screws are the stupid triangle ones. On swiveling chassis, previously 2 threaded nails and poles held the chassis to the body and allowed it to swivel. Those are now abducted into the mold of the body. This actually makes it easier to remove, just a little less prying. However, it does make it harder to incorporate into other projects. Most of the time, the bodies are in pieces of wood glued together that can be taken apart, or plastic taken apart in the same way. But once again, Mattel ruined that luxury too. With Thomas Wood models, the chassis and body is one piece, one unified block of wood that makes separating dreadful. Really just hope the grain of wood treats you well. I find that when it comes to cutting, saws are great. Shocker. hobby, tenon, hacksaw, all great, but the real magic is with stuff like band and scroll saws. Remember how I said Thomas wood is so difficult to disassemble? Not with these guys. Always be safe with saws, and read their instructions and warnings before use. Now that your models are in pieces, I give them a light sanding to rough up the finish and eviscerate any gunk that might be on them. It also makes pieces fit better together for our next step. Step 3. Born again. Now comes the reassembly. This is where any modifications that need to take place happen. Lengthen or shorten the footplate, new cab, smaller chassis, new wheels, it happens here. Funnels can sometimes be tricky.
What are you looking at me for?
What?
Most toys have their funnels held in by a pin behind the face. That way it can be lifted up and glued to be taller or shorter. Surprise, surprise, Mattel took that away too. So usually it's better to just cut off a Mattel funnel and make a new one. New funnels can be anything that looks like a funnel really, Lego studs, kebab sticks, straws, etc. When it comes to wheels, there's 2 ways to go about it. You could keep it in the TWR format, in which you really have 3 wheel sizes, being the standard ones, Big City Engine or Early Engineers, and Emily or Molly sized wheels. Or you can do my favorite, and use push-along wheels in an axle box for a correct wheel arrangement. The choice is yours. I stockpile push-along wheels to do my correct wheel arrangements, but I do like the Charm of Big City Engine or Flying Scots wheel arrangement styles. Most of the time, I just use bodies cut from wood instead of actually using parts from old toys, but both can work. As for glue, on small stuff I use hot glue, but for big stuff I use wood glue. Hot glue is easier to disassemble, while wood glue is better for wood adhesion for a long term. There's probably a slew of glues you can use for this stuff, but this is what I've used in my experience. Tools for this can vary. I use a tree trimmer for cutting small stuff and saws too, but drills are crucial for holes. Measuring equipment, T-squares, Dremels, clamps, all of these are crucial and play different parts in the process, and remember to be safe with them. Now that the rough shape is together, it's time for arguably the worst part. Part 4. Sanding and filling. Filling the gaps and imperfections of a model is fine on its own. If you're lucky, you might not have to need to fill or sand anything on a model, but more often than not, you have to fill. I use plastic wood filler putty. I apply it with gloves and a spatula. When it comes to sanding, always, and I mean always, have proper personal protection equipment such as a respirator. And make sure your respirator does catch particles and dust. There are respirators out there made only to catch gases and other things that aren't dust, so please make sure of that. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You do not want silicosis or asthma or any other chronic lung disease. It doesn't matter if it's a light or heavy sanding, wood or plastic. If you're sanding it, it's going in the air and in your lungs. No model is worth sacrificing your personal health. Never. Okay. With that out of the way, usually it takes 2 to 3 coats of filling and sanding for me to be happy with the finish. I usually use a lower grit sandpaper like 80 to 120 to start, and then when I'm finishing I use a finer one like 240 to 400 grit. It is crucial you wait for each coat of filler to dry before sanding and reapplication. Otherwise, it gunks up your sandpaper and leaves a horrible finish. Okay, finally, it's done. Let's move on to the fun stuff. Step 5. Mind my paintwork. When it comes to painting, I usually try to stick to one brand, mine being Deco Arts Americana acrylic paint, but I also use Folk Arts sometimes. The type of paint you use is up to you. Acrylics, oil-based, spray, airbrush, all your choice. I use hand-brushed acrylics. It is noteworthy if you want your models to have a smooth finish with no brush strokes. If you're using brushes, you can water down the paint. It takes more coats, but it looks good. Thanks, Polish, for never letting me forget. I don't really care for it though. When painting, make sure to use clothes you don't mind getting paint on. I've ruined so many shirts and pants. Just trust me on this one. Primer is something to consider. I don't use it, but if you want a consistent color application, it serves. I usually paint the undercarriages of my AU models black because it looks cool, but on standard Thomas Wooden Railway items, they don't have it. That part is up to you and your style. Wheels are aggravating to paint, so try to keep them the color you want when choosing a model to source it from. I usually paint the backs of my wheels the same color they are on the front, painstakingly, for a more unified look, but again, that is up to you. If you do use a paint primer finish that's airborne like airbrush or spray paint, make sure you wear a mask that can catch it so you won't breathe it in and that you do it outside. Now that your model has a base coat, it's time for lining and details. Step 6. Bring me to life. When it comes to lining, trims, details, etc., I use Posca paint pens. If you have the steady hand to paint with a brush and masking tape, good for you, but I prefer paint pens. You can mask both if you want, but I rarely do. Any accidents can be touched up with paint. How much detail you want to give them on your models is up to you. I base mine off of the 2012 Tomy TWR stuff, specifically Scarloey. That guy has got details on every side of him. But if you want to shoot for like a 1990s TWR, again, up to you. Once everything is detailed, you can give it a clear coat. I didn't do clear coats for the longest time, but I've come around to them. I use satin finishes, not too much shine, but the right amount. Clear coats can also help protect your models, so there's that. I put them on my models when I was going to Strasbourg and I fell in love with it, and they protected it. Lastly, for faces, I highly recommend a paint pen and toothpick for this. I don't know for every paint pen, but for Posca, it is easy to put on and then scrape off to get a neat detailed face. When it comes to changing the face structure, there's a lot you can do. Most of the time, I cut away the molded face and paint on new decals like the TWR 2022 stuff. I have sculpted faces from existing faces for, I don't really care for it most of the time. As long as the face looks good, I'm happy. Face can also get a clear coat for all the same reasons as the model itself. That finish is up to you. I still use satin, but I can see like a matte coat working for that. Step 7. Enjoy. You've done it. Your project is finished. I'm proud of you. And if this video has been any use, or at the very least interesting to you, that's great. I apologize if my safety reminders got annoying, but that's something I can't emphasize enough. I hope some of you create magnificent models. Even if you don't take away anything from this video, human creation is a one-of-a-kind thing, and it should always be valued. If I have helped in any of your modeling ambitions, feel free to let me know. If I can take away from this video with the fact I've helped someone, it'll all be worth it. If you think I need to learn something, let me know. I would hate to tell anyone something incorrect. Apologies if the settings in this video may vary. I moved my workbench from next to my room into the basement in the midst of this video's production. Once again, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope Thumper, 13, John, I hope the whole motley crew helped visualize this process instead of me just babbling on about it, which admittedly I still just did, and I hope to see you again. Stay off track. I'll see you later.